Okay, so Mafia: The Old Country. This is a game that I've been watching closely ever since it was announced. I played every single Mafia title since the original back in 2002, and each one left its own mark on me. Mafia 1 had that gritty cinematic storytelling that felt years ahead of its time. Mafia 2 gave us that iconic tragedy with Vito Scaletta, and honestly still one of the best written crime dramas in gaming. And of course, that is my opinion. Mafia 3 was divisive, but I respected how bold it was with Lincoln Clay's story, even if the gameplay loop wore thin. And then of course, we got the Mafia Definitive Edition, which honestly reminded me just how much love this series deserved. And so when 2K revealed The Old Country, a prequel set in Sicily before the events of the first Mafia, I was intrigued. A return to the series' roots, literally and figuratively. A chance to see where it all started, the traditions, the violence, the family politics that shaped the world that we came to know in Lost Heaven. But here's the thing, the reviews that came out were mixed. Some critics praised the setting, the atmosphere, and the ambition. Others tore into it for being too slow, clunky, and unpolished. And so I went into it with that in mind, wondering if I'd come out agreeing with the critics or if my own experience would feel different. And now, having spent multiple hours and completing the game, I do have a lot to say. And so this is going to be my full spoiler-free review, my personal take on what worked, what didn't, and whether this game really deserves a reaction that it's been getting. And so let's start with the story, because honestly, if you're here for Mafia, you're here for the narrative. That's what the series has always been about, cinematic crime drama. Mafia: The Old Country doesn't waste time throwing you into an American gang war. Instead, it roots you firmly in Sicily during the 1920s. You play as Enzo Vitali, a young man trying to survive in a land torn apart by poverty, politics, and the growing influence of the Mafia. And from the very beginning, it is clear that this isn't going to be a fast-paced Hollywood-style mob flick. It's more of a slow burn. The game takes its time setting the stage, introducing you to village life, to the dynamics of loyalty and betrayal, and to the cultural traditions that defined Sicily at that time. And I'll be honest here, at first, I wasn't sure how to feel about that. The pacing is deliberate and sometimes too deliberate. There were moments where I felt like I was waiting for the real meat of the story to begin, but the more I stuck with it, the more I realized that the slow build was part of the point. It wants you to soak in the atmosphere, to feel the weight of family ties, and to understand why these people would embrace the Mafia in the first place. And critics have been divided on this. Some call it boring, others called it ambitious, and for me, I'd say it's a little bit of both. There are stretches where it drags, there's absolutely no denying that, but there are also moments where the writing absolutely shines. The quiet conversations, the way characters talk about honor, or the way betrayal is framed not as cartoonish villainy, but as a clash of survival and pride. And when the story finally does ramp up, it is powerful. The betrayal feels earned. The violence feels brutal and shocking in the right ways. And by the end, I felt like I'd really seen the roots of the Mafia mythos in a way that no other game has shown. And now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Some side missions feel disconnected. Some dialogue scenes go on way too long. But overall, the story gave me exactly what I wanted. A grounded, personal crime tale that connects the dots between Sicily and Lost Heaven. And now a Mafia story lives and dies by its characters. Luckily, The Old Country delivers some strong ones. Enzo, the protagonist, isn't your typical gangster. He starts out reluctant, hesitant to embrace the Mafia life. Watching him slowly harden, making compromises, and ultimately stepping into a role of power was fascinating. It reminded me a little bit of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. The whole I didn't want this life, but this life chose me kind of arc. And then of course, there's Don Teresi, the local boss who takes Enzo under his wing. He's written in that classic Mafia mentor style, but with enough nuance to keep him interesting. He's ruthless when he needs to be, but he also genuinely believes that he's protecting his community. And now on the flip side, some characters didn't just land well at all. A couple of Enzo's friends felt underdeveloped, almost like they were just trying to push the plot forward. And one or two of the villains felt a little too one note, like the kind of I'm evil because I'm evil archetype. But when the game does nail its characters, it did nail them. The family dynamics, the betrayals, the moral grayness, that's where it all shines. And honestly, even the weaker characters still felt like part of a believable world. But okay, let's talk about gameplay, because this is where the game has been getting a lot of mixed reviews on. The gunplay, it's fine. It's honestly what I would say serviceable. But it doesn't feel as smooth as modern shooters. There's weight to the weapons, but sometimes that weight translates more into clunkiness than immersion. And so I had moments where aiming felt sluggish or cover mechanics just didn't respond the way that I wanted them to. But where the game surprised me was in melee combat. Knife fights, fist fights, those are brutal, raw, and honestly some of the most intense moments that I had in the game. It's not flashy, but it feels gritty and dangerous. And every stab, every punch feels like it could literally be your last. And now driving, on the other hand, is a mixed bag. Now, I appreciate the effort to make the old school cars feel authentic, but sometimes authentic just means frustrating. These vehicles are slow. They handle like bricks, and while that might be historically accurate, it doesn't always make for the most fun gameplay. But still, I kind of respected the choice. It forced me to think about traveling differently, to plan ahead rather than just speeding from point A to point B. And stealth also plays a bigger role here than in past Mafia games. Sneaking through the vineyards, slipping into mansions, or creeping through alleyways at night. These sections were tense, and I really did enjoy them. And now the AI isn't perfect, but it created some genuinely memorable moments. And so overall, the gameplay is a mixed bag. It's not broken, not unplayable, just honestly uneven. The highs are really high, but the lows are noticeable and definitely very low. And now the real star of the game for me was the world. Sicily in the old country is breathtaking. The rolling hills, the coastal towns, the narrow cobblestone streets, it feels alive, rich with history and culture. The developers clearly poured a ton of effort into making this place immersive, and it definitely does show. The atmosphere is thick. You hear church bells in the distance, villagers gossiping in Sicilian dialects, roosters crowing in the morning, and there's this tangible sense of place that makes everything feel authentic. And honestly, that's what kept me hooked even when the gameplay faltered. Just being in that world was enough. Walking through markets, attending festivals, listening to old men argue about politics, it gave the game a texture that few others managed to do. And critics weren't wrong here when they said that the atmosphere was one of its biggest strengths. This world feels lived in, and I found myself just wandering sometimes, soaking it all in. But of course, I can't help but compare this to other Mafia games. It doesn't have the slick pacing of Mafia 2. It doesn't have the open world ambition of Mafia 3. But in a lot of ways, it reminded me most of the Definitive Edition. Focused, story-driven, and atmospheric. And so to sum it up, the strengths I would say are the story. Once it ramps up, is powerful and it's emotionally rich. Enzo is a compelling protagonist. The world of Sicily is gorgeous, atmospheric, and immersive. Night fights and stealth sections are surprisingly intense, and the cultural detail and authenticity set it apart from other crime games. And so for the weaknesses, I'd say pacing can drag, especially early on. Gunplay feels clunky compared to modern standards, vehicle handling is frustratingly authentic, some characters feel underdeveloped, and technical polish is lacking in spots. Bugs, stiff animations, poor performance, etc., etc. And so where does that leave me with all this? And so Mafia the Old Country is a flawed but fascinating entry into the series. It's not that kind of game that I'd recommend to everyone. If you're looking for a fast-paced action blockbuster, this definitely isn't it. If you're looking for a polished shooter with slick mechanics, this definitely is not it either. But if you're like me, someone who loves Mafia for its storytelling, its atmosphere, and its ability to make you feel like you've stepped into another time and place, then this game has definitely something special here. It's slow, it is rough around the edges, but it's also deeply atmospheric, emotionally powerful at times, and unlike anything else that I've played recently. And I know the critics have been split, and I definitely get why. But personally, I'm glad that I played it. It gave me a glimpse of into the roots of the Mafia world. And while it stumbled in places, it also delivered moments that I won't forget. And so would I call it the best Mafia game? Absolutely not. Would I call it a waste of time? Definitely not. It's one of those games that sticks with you, not because it's perfect, but because it dares to be different. And at the end of the day, I respect that. And so if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Also hit that subscribe button if you're new, as I will continue to make more gaming review videos just like this one. Until next time.